Okay, I'm going to talk about the FTC's recent ban on non-compete agreements. Now, I don't actually know all the details. There may be exclusions. I haven't looked very deeply into this, but I'm just going to kind of talk about non-compete agreements more broadly. So what a non-compete agreement is it's basically an agreement between an employee and an employer. And what it says is that that employee, usually when that employee is hired, they will sign a non-compete agreement. And that non-compete agreement will have certain terms, right? And usually what those terms are, they'll say that that employee is not allowed to quit that job and then go work for a competitor, perhaps for some designated amount of time. So, for example, if Apple hires an engineer to design the next iPhone, what it says is that what that non-compete agreement does is it says that Apple employees are not allowed to quit and go work for Samsung to perhaps design Samsung smartphones, right? Now, the thing is non-compete agreements are, they're kind of they are a free market mechanism. So when the government bans non-compete agreements, what the government is doing is it's kind of infringing on the free market, okay? It's infringing on free market capitalism. Okay, so when I first saw this ban on non-compete agreements, I was happy. I looked at it and I said, this is a win-win for the laborers. It's a win across the board. And then I thought about it a little more, and I realized that, you know, the government here this is giving power to the government. However, or rather, it is an infringement on free market capitalism. And I'm not necessarily a strict free market capitalism guy by any means. I'm more of a working class. I'm more side with the working class, and whatever means the working class can gain power in the workplace, I'm all for that. Whether that's through government policy or through free market means, like labor unions, for example. So, however, I did look at this and I said, this is an infringement on that free market capitalism. And what that's going to do, or what it could potentially do, what you could see it doing, is it could hurt small businesses. It could, and the reason for that is because if a small business owner wanted to hire an employee, and well, that employee isn't able to, either they're no longer allowed to make that employee sign a non-compete agreement. Well, that employee could go into the job, you know, and take some innovative technology or innovative idea that small business came up with, and he could go work for Apple, or some other big corporation, some big business, and give that idea right over to that bigger corporation. So there is a possibility that this non-compete agreement, or that a ban on non-compete agreements, hurts small business owners. And I had to wrap my head around this, and ultimately I came back to the same conclusion I started at, that this is a good thing, this ban on non-compete agreements, regardless of the small business issues or whatever. And the reason kind of comes down to this. So if we think about what the non-compete agreement is trying to do, it's trying to protect the rights of individuals. So if an individual goes into any company, goes to work for any company, small or large, that individual, we have to value that individual's choices over the choices of the corporation. That is what we have to do. And so in a sense, even though the government is passing this non-compete agreement, and it seems like it's an infringement on free market capitalism, it's really not. What it actually is it's a small government policy that is essentially attempting to protect, again, the rights of individuals above the rights of corporations. Now, again, if you're a small business owner and you say you are an entrepreneur and you're the only employee and you want to hire somebody, and that somebody wants to take your ideas, quit, and then go work for Apple, ultimately at that scale, you are that employee that quit and went and worked for Apple is kind of infringing on the rights of that entrepreneur, right? That owner of that small business. On that level, on that scale, this ban on non-compete agreements could be an infringement on individual rights. But the thing is those situations are so far and few between, and ultimately what this is going to do more broadly is it's going to enable regular people who work for these larger corporations, you know, the Fortune 500. It's going to enable them to be able to quit and go work for competitors, or to be able to move the ideas of one business to another business. And we might originally think that's a bad idea, but I don't think so. Okay, so if we really think about this, you know, we can think in terms of profit all the time, and we can argue that the profits of the business, the profits of the capitalistic business is the priority. Or we can argue that the well-being of the society is the priority. And what happens when we argue for the second argument, when we argue that the well-being of the society should be prioritized over profits, what happens is we take those ideas that Apple comes up with. Say Apple designs a new camera in their smartphone that is better than Samsung's. When we take that camera and somebody takes it and runs to Samsung with it, you might think that this is going to hinder innovation because Apple's not getting rewarded for that innovation. But it's not quite that simple, because when Apple comes up with invents that camera, and they do it first, they have a head start, right? And they're gonna have probably, I mean, it takes 6 months or more to design a smartphone, maybe a year, especially the flagships. So when Apple designs that new camera and they finish that design, say an employee quits the moment they finish that design and then they run to Samsung, there's a very small chance, there's a very little chance that Samsung is going to beat Apple to the market with that new camera design. So what that means is Samsung, or the Apple, is going to get the original reward. They're going to get the incentive to create such innovations as that new smartphone camera technology or whatever. And then a year later, Samsung has that technology now. But again, Samsung's not getting the benefit of that new technology. They just kind of took it from Apple, right? So Samsung has their own incentive to beat Apple to the market with their own camera technology that is better than Apple's. So at the end of the day, this ban on non-compete agreements isn't really going to hinder the incentive to innovate. It's not going to hinder the incentive to innovate and, in effect, bring more profits in for your company. What it is going to do is it's going to basically give one company that does innovate, it's going to give them a little head start. It's basically going to give them a little bit of a patent on a new technology or a new idea, but it's a short patent. Now, we can argue that somebody who invents something should have a 20-year patent on it, right? Or we can argue that they should have a small patent, a short patent. And then what happens? We share that technology with other companies, with other competitors. And that's going to happen either way. Samsung's going to buy that new Apple phone, and they're going to basically break that iPhone apart. They're going to reverse engineer it and design something themselves that is equivalent or better, right? This is the nature of innovation. People think that you have to reward somebody for being innovative for 20 years. You have to give them a patent on an idea. And non-compete agreements are basically an attempt to patent an idea or a technology, and they're an attempt to keep that idea or technology out of the hands of competitors. Ideas, you know, we have to, what we have to realize here is that the freedom of the individual to move to another company, to work for a competitor, that freedom needs to be prioritized over ideas. That is the ultimate message I'm trying to send here. We can't prioritize the profits that new ideas and new technologies bring in over the freedom of an individual to go to another company and work for them. We can't send kids to college for 4 years, 4, 6, 8 years, and then have them go work for Apple. They worked there for 3 years. They signed a non-compete that lasts for 2 years. Now they can't. All of their experience is in this market, this smartphone market, for example. Now you're telling them that they have all this college debt and they can't go work for a competitor because perhaps they got laid off. I don't exactly. I mean, maybe layoffs have an exclusion from those non-competes. It kind of depends on the agreement, right? Again, the point here is that we have to prioritize the freedom of the individual over the freedom of, or over the freedom to profit from ideas to, into the future. There's this, China, there's this argument that China steals a lot of America's innovations. They steal our software. In India too, they steal our software, they steal our technology. And there's an argument that they're evil for doing this, that they're evil for not allowing us to profit on this technology forever. Now, I can't even say if that's true that China is stealing our technology, but assume it is. This is good for humanity. We don't want America to be running way ahead in the technological landscape and leave everybody else behind. And in truth, nowadays, China is so much larger, their population is so much larger that they're going to pass us anyway. The point here is that if you invent something and it has a capacity to bring you profits, you deserve a reward for that. But we really need to think about we need to think about the magnitude of that reward. We need to think about how long that reward lasts. If you write music, you sell an album, if you're Pink Floyd and you sell 20 million copies of Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, the actual band members that wrote that album, they're getting paid for it, right? Who's getting paid most of the profits that come from that album? No, it's probably not Pink Floyd. It's probably the record label. And we've given that record label a patent, basically the ability to profit from that forever. So this is what happens. We have employees who go, and this is what happens in large corporations. We have employees that go into Apple. They make all the innovation. They design everything. They engineer everything. And then who profits from it? Stockholders, shareholders, owners, right? The board of directors, the C-suite, right? We're arguing that employee can't use the work take those work and those ideas that they invested their time to develop and move to another company and use those ideas elsewhere. That's bullshit. It's not going to work. It's going to create a bitter economic market. It's going to create a bitter economic field in general. It's going to hinder innovation, and we don't want to do that. We want, again, if you invent something that benefits society, you deserve an economic reward for that. We need to incentivize people to do that, but we need to ask, again, we have to kind of tamp down the magnitude to which we reward the inventor of that technology. And the way you do that is not by transferring the profits to the administration, right, to the administrative board, to the CEOs, to the record labels, for example. We have to realize that it's the engineers that invented the smartphone. Okay, it's not the CEO. That engineer has the right to take the ideas that they worked towards and take them to another company, a competitor perhaps. They even, and that's another thing that non-compete agreements do. Sometimes they will say that an employee is not allowed to go and start their own business that it competes in the same market. Again, we have to prioritize the freedom of the individual over the freedom of the right to profit from ideas. We have to protect the individual, not the idea. Okay, thanks for watching.